Make the ground shake.
What's up everyone, and in this video I'm going to be taking a look at 3 of the new Cydia tanks coming into the game in 1.11. First, before actually getting to the review, I need to actually tell you what tanks are coming. So first off, the KV-13 at tier 7. Second is the long awaited Object 140 at tier 10. And last but certainly not least, probably the most hyped, is the KV-2. Finally, this tank has made it into the game, and hopefully it will be a lot of fun when it comes out. So before I actually get into looking at the tanks, I just want to show you what the texture will look like with these new additions. So you see the KV-1 will lead to the KV-2, and the KV-2 is gonna lead to the T150. Whilst the KV-1S and the T3485 will lead to the KV-13 at tier 7. And yeah, there you go. And the KV-13 leads to the T43 or the IS, which is also pretty decent. And lastly, the Object 140 is from the T54, but it's from the second gun on the T54, so you need to unlock that before you can actually get to the Object 140. So now, one gun, unlocking either gun gives you the opportunity to unlock any tank, which is good. Okay, so let's get started. So first off, we're going to kick off with the KV-13, and this is an interesting tank. So this is kind of like a mashup of different tanks. I mean, it's got the hull of the IS tier 7 heavy tank, and it's got the gun of the T43, the top 85mm, but with kind of worse characteristics. So let's take a look at the IS or KV-13's hull armor first, and then we'll get into the gun and the maneuverability. The KV-13 gets 120mm of frontal hull armor, 85 of the sides and 85 of the rear, and the turret armor is 190 and 90. So basically this thing has the IS's hull, as I've just said, and the IS is kind of a tough nut to crack for the lower tiers it faces, because it's going to be facing tier 5s, tier 6s, tier 7s, 8s and 9s. But for the tier 6s and 7s it's going to be a problem, and have a look at Armor Inspector to see how tier 6s do against this tank. So using the M4A3E8's top gun, it has 120mm of penetration, and it's barely able to go through the upper front plate, and if you angle it, then you won't be able to go through the front hull at all. The weak spot with this tank, I guess, for guns with lower penetration is the turret, which is 100mm thick, so pretty much most things that this thing faces should be able to penetrate that without a problem. So it's kind of like the KV-220 really. It's got a strong hull but a weak turret, and then if we look at something with high penetration like the IS's gun or the IS-3's gun, it'll be able to go through this for no problem. Okay, so the KV-13's gun has 9.68 rounds a minute. It's got 144mm of penetration, 194 with premium ammo. The average damage is 200 with AP and APCR, and with the HE it's 300, and the accuracy and aim time is exactly the same as the T43's with 0.37 and 2.3. So the only difference in the guns there between the T43 and the KV-13 is the rate of fire. The KV-13 gets 1.23 less rate of fire, whereas the T43 gets 1.23 more, so the T43 gets 10.91 rounds a minute, but 9.68 still isn't bad at all. So the KV-13 weighs 36 tons, and it gets an 800 horsepower engine, so it should be able to accelerate pretty quickly to its speed limit of 50 kilometers an hour. It also gets a pretty good traverse speed of 40 degrees per second, and the turret traverse is 42, which is pretty strong. And also there's the fact that it's got a low fire chance, so you won't be set on fire much unless you literally get hit in the engine. So next up is the Object 140 at tier 10. This is going to be a new Soviet tier 10 medium tank added into the game, and it's going to be the second one alongside the T62A. So these two mediums are very similar, but they've got small differences which kind of change what the tanks kind of do. So the Object 140 is faster, it's got the better gun depression, and there's a bit more stuff to that. And you know, let's take a look at the tank. The Object 140 gets 1900 health, which is actually quite a lot for a medium tank in Blitz. I mean, this is the same amount as it gets on the PC version, but right now it's got the most health here in Blitz, tied with the E50M. So the armor isn't great. It's 100 at the front, 80 at the sides, and 55 at the rear, which is absolutely terrible, but it's a medium tank, and the turret armor, as usual, is pretty strong. 240 at the front, 187 at the sides, and 55 at the rear. But the thing is, with the front of the turret, the cheeks next to the gun can actually be penetrated by tier 10 guns. I mean, it's not like the 62A where it's very hard to penetrate, but with the 140 it is possible to penetrate pretty easily, just the cheeks near the next to the gun. Another thing about the turret is the turret roof is pretty bad. That's the top of the turret, so it's pretty easy to penetrate if you're looking directly down at it, but even if it's at a slight angle, kind of like this, all you'll need is like a 120mm gun and you'll be able to go through this thing pretty easily. And if you haven't already noticed by now, that what Object 140 has 2 cupolas instead of the T62A's 1, and those cupolas are actually pretty huge, so there's another weak spot to the tank. And yeah, the thing is though, it does get that extra 1 degree of gun depression against this T62A, and as you'll see later on, it can be a huge decider between game wins and game losses and so on. But the weak spots on the turret are very, very weak, 30mm or something like that, so you just have to hit it, and it's a pretty big target, and you'll be able to penetrate and do damage. Okay, so let's take a look at the Object 140's gun. So it's the same 100mm that is on the T62A. It's got the 264mm of penetration, APCR, 330 with heat, same 300 average damage, but the difference, there's a huge difference, and that is the rate of fire. I don't know whether this is a bug or not with the current test, but the Object 140 has 9.09 rounds a minute, which is huge a difference to the 9.76 the T62A gets, because on PC these two tanks have the exact same rate of fire, and that is 9.09 seconds, which is the PC value as well. So I don't know whether this is a bug yet, or maybe it's intentional, but we'll see. And the accuracy is 0.35 and the aiming time is 2.1 seconds. Comparing this to the T62A's version of the gun, it gets 0.1 less aiming time and 0.1 less accuracy. So this is probably going to make you think, what does the 140 have in its favor? Well, let's see. So the Object 140 has speed over the T62A only by 5 km an hour, and it also, as I mentioned, the 1 degree of gun depression. So if I was in this situation and there was an enemy coming across there over to the field, I'd prefer to be in an Object 140 instead of a T62A because of the gun depression. It gets 6 degrees of gun depression, and if I was in a T62A in this position, I would have almost certainly not been able to aim down this much. And it could have been a game-winning shot or something, you never know. That's why I'd probably prefer the 140 because of the gun depression. And finally, we have the lumbering beast that is the KV2 with that 152mm derp, and you know, just the pure randomness of the tank. I think it's probably gonna be a lot of fun. So let's take a look at it. So the KV2 gets the hull armor of the KV1, which I think is 75 frontally and then 70 all around. I'm not sure. And at tier 6, that's really, it's not bad, but it's not great considering you're only going to be facing tier 5s at the least, and most of them are able to penetrate the KV1 frontally. You're going to be facing up to tier 8, so I don't think your armor really matters in that case. The armor of the KV2 is exactly the same as the hull, and I made the mistake, it's 75 at the side instead of 70, but yeah, it still doesn't matter what the height is. Okay, so let's get on to the main attraction of the KV2, and that is its 152mm derp gun. So it fires 2.5 rounds a minute, which makes it the longest reload in the game, and that is a reload of 24 seconds, I think. Penetration of the first AP rounds are 110, the second, the premium AP rounds are 136, and the high explosive, which is what I think you should be using mostly in this tank, is 86, as there are a lot. Well, most of the tier 6s have somewhere where it can be 86 and you can penetrate with 80 and do full damage. Aiming time of the KV2 is 4 seconds, which I think is also the longest in the game, and the accuracy might probably also be the longest in the game at 0.6, but the damage it does, with the AP it does 640, with the HE if it penetrates it does 960, and oh boy is it satisfying when you can one-shot a tier 6 tank by penetrating it with HE. KV2 has 860 hit points, which is the same as it has on PC, and it makes it the lowest out of the tier 6 heavies on Blitz. It weighs 53 tons, it's got a 600 horsepower engine, which isn't really that good for a tank this heavy. But it's also got 18 traverse speed on the hull and on the turret, which is also pretty bad, so you can easily get circled in this tank. So you have to be pretty careful. Anyway, that's the end of the video. Sorry if it feels a bit rushed, but I've had to rush it because I still have school. Yep, that cesspool still isn't over for me. I've got a week to go, and I've got other videos to make, I guess. So, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you're new. Leave a like if you actually do like the video. And hopefully you all enjoy the KV2, which I know most of you are probably going to be happy about this update for. And bye!